What's up, Planeswalkers? That's your boy K-Dog. We're back in Standard here, trying out some Grixis control post-rotation. Obviously, Grixis lost a lot of its best tools. Nicol Bolas, of course, was what kind of made those decks work, really. Just super powerful card that could kind of take over games by itself. We don't quite have anything to that power level, although Ashiok is kind of not too far off from that power level. A similar casting cost and much easier with the 3 blue and black. 5 loyalty plus 1 to make a 2/3 black nightmare token whenever it attacks or blocks. We exile cards from our opponent's library. -3 to bounce something back to their hand, then they have to exile a card from their hand. And -7 to cast 3 spells that are that we exiled basically without even paying their mana cost. So also kind of gives us a little bit of card advantage and some board presence, so it can kind of defend itself. Or removal, of course, with its -3. We're also running 2 copies here of Chandra. Being able to refill your hand in the late game if you're top deck mode can be pretty sweet. +1 to deal 2 damage to any target. And then a -9 to kind of maybe dig for some more spells. Not too many red spells, obviously, but we do get 6 red mana, which we can use towards like a Shark Typhoon or whatever else we need at the time. We do have 2 copies here of Storm's Wrath for board wipes. We're mostly leaning like counter magic in this particular version. But so whenever your opponent is able to kind of get a bunch of creatures out on the board, you can kind of clean that up with some Storm's Wrath. Another reason to be in Grixis is we have these new spell lands. Hagra Mauling can come down as a black mana source, or you can have it as instant speed for 4 mana to destroy a target creature. It does cost 1 less if your opponent has no basic lands, but that's probably not going to happen too often, I would imagine. But every once in a while it'll just be like a straight up murder. But typically it'll just be like a 4 mana kill anything. But the fact that it can be a land is pretty interesting. A couple 8/2 extinctions here, exile a creature or planeswalker, and also kind of potentially fix your next draw, like a little surveil effect. We also have a Murderous Rider here to kill creatures or planeswalkers. We have Brazen Borrowers as a kind of a catch-all interaction here, being able to bounce any non-land permanent on our opponent's side. So if they resolve something that we weren't prepared for or expecting, we can at least bounce it back to their hand while we kind of stall them out, and hopefully we can dig into some answers. And of course the 3/1 flyer could help you kind of close out games as well. Additional interaction here, we have 3 copies of Heartless Act. This might get kind of the better removal spell over Eliminate these days. Obviously there are counters decks, Abzan or Selesnya, but I actually haven't been running into them too much, and either way, I think Heartless Act just has much more of an impact overall on the meta, hitting Omnaths and things like that. So Heartless Act is where we're at. And Spikefield Hazard gives us some additional interaction here, also in the form of a land. We're running 3 copies here, try to have this in the early game to deal with Cobras and things like that. Instant speed to do 1 damage, and if it goes to exile instead, it's pretty sweet. Alright, so some of our counter magic includes the Anticognition for 2 mana. We get a counter a creature or planeswalker spell, unless the controller pays 2. Or if they have 8 or more cards in their graveyard, we counter that spell and scry 2. So we're not actually actively trying to mill our opponent, but we're in Grixis colors, so we'll have plenty of counter and kill spells, and then of course your opponents can be playing out spells and crack and fill passages and filling up their own graveyard with things. So it shouldn't be too hard to get to this 8 or more cards in their graveyard, and then just becomes a hard counter spell for 2 mana, plus the scry 2 on top of that is pretty sweet. We do have 3 Neutralize here as well. Being able to cycle this away when it's not relevant in the particular situation or matchup is pretty sweet. And obviously we're mostly leaning towards the blue back side, so having Neutralize and Murderous Rider and things like that. We're not too worried about being able to cast these when we need to. Red is just kind of our splash color, so it generally shouldn't be too much of an issue. We also have 3 copies here of Omen of Deceit, giving us some card draw and scry, of course. So kind of a good, even in the early game, to kind of fix your draws. Obviously works on the stack. If your opponent casts something and you don't have a counter spell, you can kind of dig for that. Or if you need to find a kill spell or whatever. We also have 2 copies here of Silundi Vision. That's our last land spell, if you will. Comes in tapped, of course, as a blue mana source. Otherwise, we can pay 3 instant speed to look at the top 6 cards of a library for any instant or sorcery card to have it come to our hand. The rest go just to the bottom of our library. So that's a pretty sweet way to dig, especially in the late game. You can your opponent tries to go cast an Ugin or something like that. You can pay 3, try to dig for a Neutralize, and boom, you can counter it, or Anticognition for that matter. So yeah, pretty sweet. We don't have like Chemist's Insight or any of those types of Nice card draw effects, so Rain of Elevation seems like it's kind of the next best thing. Just one copy though. Draw 3 and discard a card at instant speed. So we're basically trying to play instant speed with pretty much everything we have here. Like all of our removal is instant speed, even like the spell lands. The Hagra Mauling is instant speed. Spikefield Hazard is instant speed, and even Silundi Vision is an instant. So definitely nice having that option to just play at instant speed for the most part. We do have the 2 Storm's Wrath, obviously, and then we have the 2 Chandras and 4 Ashioks. But everything else can be played at instant speed, unless we want to hardcast a Shark Typhoon, which could be in winning condition if we're having trouble resolving our Planeswalkers or keeping them alive in certain matchups. Shark Typhoon, and then whatever other counter or kill spells we cast after that will give us creature tokens, and we can kind of help use those to close out the game, or we can just cycle this away in the early game just to dig for more answers. So mana base, we have 20 actual natural lands, so one of each basic, just a little bit of protection from Field of Ruin and similar effects. All the pathways that are relevant, the Clearwater, Clearwater Pathway, which can be a red, blue or a black source. The Riverglide Pathway, which is a red or a blue source, and then 3 of each of the temples. Obviously, being able to scry is pretty impactful, but it is lose some of its luster against the rogue matchups because they have so much flash mill effects, where even if you try to keep something on top, they're probably just going to have a way to mill it anyway, either on attacks or flashing something in. So obviously in those matchups, you basically just keep it on top if it's something you don't care gets milled away. Otherwise, you put it on the bottom and maybe hope you kind of can draw into it a little bit later on. Sideboard here, we do have Soul Guide Lantern for some graveyard interaction. Jwari Disruption is another counterspell that can be played as a land for those control matchups. 2 more negates for the control matchup as well. Feed the Swarm gives us some enchantment interaction. Scorching Dragonfire for rogues and other aggro matchups, instant speed. Shredded Sails for artifact hate for lucky clovers, embercleaves, things like that. Soul Shatter mostly here for that there's a new green creature that has hexproof and haste and can't be countered. So that's obviously going to be wrecking our day if we're not able to deal with it. And Soul Shatter is kind of our only real answer for that. And also being able to, get rid of any of the bigger creatures or planeswalkers on our opponent's side. And speed is still pretty sweet. And also Soul Steer, I think, is still a pretty solid removal spell here as well. It works against the gods, of course, like Heliod and Clovis. And even against, like the Winota matchups where they have, like, the Selfless Savior trying to give it, sack it to give it indestructible, things like that. Well, Soul Steer is a nice answer in those matchups as well. So I'm not too sure how well this deck is tuned as far as competitive play, so we're just going to jump into the unranked play queue and see how it goes. Alright, against Pepe77. Got to go first. Oh, we got all the lands here. Hard to know what we're up against. I guess we lean on Spikefield to maybe be relevant. So we'll see what they're up to. Alright. So they're on a Dimir list potentially as well. So we probably want to have Neutralize open to us. So when you get some blue sources down ASAP. Oh, there's just our Rogues deck. You're roguing us before we get to scry. Doesn't seem very smart. So these rogue decks are pretty legit. So I don't know about having face them in the unranked play queue, but we'll give it a go. I still think we want to have options here with Neutralize next turn. We still have the Anticognition here as well, so that's fine. I guess we'll leave it on top. Probably gets milled, but we'll see how they play it. I mean, they seem like they don't want to play anything on our turn at all, so, or on their turn. Looks like there's strictly a flash version, which is probably the better way to go. Alright, we got 4 manas, and we have another one, so I don't think there's any reason to play this Hagra Mauling as land. Just want to hold her up for instant speed kill spells. We don't have a counter, so if they do want to mill that, we can counter should say we do have a counter spell, so if they do want to mill that, we can neutralize it. They have mana open as well, so they could have a counter for our counter, draw on a lock or something. I mean, Thieves Guild isn't their biggest threat, but it is pretty, you know, annoying, obviously. It enables the rest of their rogues, basically, to get that mill, and then they get all that value of draw on the lock. Although once you get up to a certain number of cards in your graveyard, this doesn't really matter at that point. So they're down to 3 cards, so I'm not complaining about that part. And we have all the black madness here to cast any number of removal spells here. We don't have any counters in hand, so I guess we just play this as a black source. Try to kill this on their turn, try to make them play play spells on their turn instead of ours. So rogues are a pretty tough matchup because they have lots of removal and counters. Not really playing creatures, so we don't care about their kill spells, but they have Drown the Lock, which can be a counter or a kill spell, which is pretty nice. Well, they've used up basically their entire hand now. Didn't say please. Guess that makes sense. And Lofty Denial. Alright, Temple of Malice. Probably want that, so I guess we'll bottom it. Actually, we'll just do this while they're tapped out. Alright, last card. What do you got? So we're down to 12, but we do have a lifelinker on board, and they're basically in top deck mode at this point. Eat to Extinction. Okay. Would have been nice to get that life back, but of course they have an answer here. And exile removal at that. Alright, Storm's Wrath isn't really great, because we've been able to kill everything else so far. Sure-footed Infiltrator. Not sure that's worth it. Well, just Storm's Wrath here. Just keep the board clear. They have 2 mana open and 1 card in hand, so it could be a counter. Draw on the lock or something. If it is, they decide not to fire it off, so we'll see. Probably just another creature. Nightbonder, sure. So depending on what they have here, we could resolve this Chandra and pick off the Nightbonder with her +1. Just an opt. Opt is pretty medium. It seems like you'd rather just actually play an actual spell instead of whatever it is you're trying to search for. Not the biggest fan of opt unless you're like in like a spells list where you know you can trigger. You can actually trigger the you know, the instant or sorcery side with like sprite dragons and things like that. Alright, so we have a counter magic here. So Anticognition with open mana is pretty sweet. Opponent says go, of course. Another instant speed removal. Alright, we're gonna start pinging you away for 2. Three cards in hand. They're building up their answers. Wow. Somehow we got rogues just to give up. Alright, obviously we need like card draw, but we also need some interactions. Let's see, what do we want? Like Storm's Wrath is pretty medium, honestly, against them. And maybe even Chandra is as well. They conceded there, but they must have just not drawn very well. So we'll actually bring in more targeted instant speed removal. I don't think Soul Shatter is the answer, and Feed the Storm probably not quite where we want to be, especially in an aggro matchup, paying life. But yeah, I think Dragonfire and even Soul Seer. So if they do have like a the Nighthawk or Zareth Sound, we still have answers for that. In addition to you know, Heartless Axe and Eat to Extinction. Rogues is a pretty rough matchup, but it's not unbeatable. Obviously, I imagine they were going to bring in more counter spells against us, since their kill spells aren't very good. But we have Shark Typhoon still, so that could catch them off guard a little bit if they don't have the right answer. So basically need the Shark Typhoons or Ashiok, or just them to give up. Definitely feel like they had answers if they played it out, or it would have been much very close game. This is the unranked play queue, so maybe they're still just kind of getting their feet wet. I probably want to have the Spikefield ready, so I think we'll fire this off as a red source. And we'll start getting these other lands down. Just go with Temple here, maybe dig for another land would be good. And Dragonfire is not bad. This will still lead with Temple. I think we'll actually bottom that. Alright, we'll take out the Souls, Storm's Wrath, and Chandra, so we'll play this out as a blue source. We don't have a Neutralize, but potentially we just draw into one. We'll see. Oh, Anticognition isn't bad. Alright, play you out as a blue source. There you go. Still nothing from our opponent. So we're building up some nice instant speed interaction here when they do finally try to cast something. So having instant speed answers is pretty fantastic against rogues, but they still have a lot of tricks they can do, especially if they play it well with trying to flash stuff in and then still have counter magic backup. Yeah, being able to play instant speed is pretty sweet, because Grixis, for a while now, at least from what I recall from the last couple of years, has been kind of a basically more of almost a sorcery speed type of a control deck with a handful of instant speed interaction. So it's kind of nice to build this and really kind of focus on the instant speed, and having these Spikefield Hazards and things like that be. Why are you trying to mill me, or are you trying to kill me with rogues? Like, what are you doing, opponent? I don't think it works when you try to do both. Like you just spread your deck too thin if you want to go. If you try to mill and try to play rogues, like you kind of have to just focus on one or the other. I mean, they're milling us, so hey. What do I know? 6 cards in hand, they're not playing anything. We'll fire off this Omen. You want to counter an Omen? Not have a counter magic for kill spells? We'll bottom that. Keep the Temple. Another Temple. Alright. Yeah, you can mill that. I mean, 41 cards. They got a long way to go. If we have more tutelages, we don't really have counter magic right now. But that's kind of the issue. Like, are you trying to mill, or are you trying to play rogues? Like, if you're trying to mill, then you're gonna have multiples of these. But if you're trying to play rogues, then you can only run so many of these. So it's like, all right, play another Temple here. Might want that later, so we'll bottom that. No reason to run an Ashiok into a counterspell here. I mean, they got the tutelage, so we do have to find some way to apply some pressure to them. Otherwise, they can just kind of sit back. We'll flash this in, see if that draws something out of them. We don't have any counter magic, so just kind of see what they can do. Are you serious? Did I miss something? You're playing Essence Scatter against me? Alright, we'll try to resolve an Ashiok then. I mean, Lofty Denials are cool.
The regrets of the dead are the sweetest ingredient.
We'll bounce that just because we want to make him kind of discard some stuff. The creature isn't too relevant.
You will feel inspired.
We have 6 lands, so I don't think we need to play these out as lands. I think we want to keep as much instant speed interaction as we can. Okay, so they play the tutelage. Now they only have 3 manas open. They get another draw, but they do have to discard. Essence Scatter and Mire's Grasp against the Grixis control list. It's not cards I would leave in. Well, those are definitely not cards I would leave in.
Are delightfully friendly.
Sure. You got me. Alright, Petty Theft in our 2-3. They don't have anything on board. I guess they're just going to sit back and try to mill me. I'll probably try to play this Borrower just to deal with our Ashiok, but we'll go for the Spikefield on it. We'll go and cycle this for 4. Plays around Essence Scatter. I still think that's hilarious. Like, we're not running any real creatures. I guess they really want to deal with our Murderous Riders. I mean, those are 2/3s are serious business, right? We don't want to lose our Ashiok. Want to try to keep Ashiok around. So we'll play this as a blue source. Go ahead and fire this off. I think now. While they have fewer resources available to them. So they're milling us. We're down to 28 cards, and I still have 20 life. But we're at Ashiok up to 4 now, so next turn we can potentially minus and bounce the tutelage again. And they milled quite a bit, over half our library now, but we still have lots of good answers in hand, so I'm not too worried about it. I guess we'll scry. Take a Neutralize, I guess. See if they want to flash something in here. Nope. Don't really care about these tokens. I'm not sure. Not sure about that play. So now we have 2 Neutralizers, probably to counter this next tutelage. 2 cards in hand, could be counter magic. We're short of being able to counter their counter if that's what they have, but that's fine. It's less counter magics they do have for any creatures. Okay, they choose not to, or they just don't have it. Okay. I'm not sure what was going on there post sideboard. Game 1, they had a pretty nice start with Rogues, and then Game 2, Essence Scatter, I don't understand why you leave that in against us. I'm sure you have better sideboard tech for control. Even the Eliminates as well. I mean, they kill our tokens and our Murderous Riders, but if you're worried about those, then I feel like you have bigger problems. Lofty Denial is kind of whatever. But yeah, we had nice instant interaction, which is huge against the Rogue deck because they want to play at flash speed. Well, we can kind of keep up with them and play at flash speed as well. Alright, against Man in the Orange Cap. On the draw. And we basically have 3 lands, so I guess we'll keep it. Eye Collector. Start with Temple and see what we can mill. Don't want to mill that, so we'll bottom that. We have the Spikefield here to pick that off if we care. Interesting. So you're trying to mill us out with your Eye Collector and Towering Wave Mystic. So each player mills. Play us out as a blue source. I guess we probably want to kill this. Don't want them to get too much mill just yet. Especially if they have more powerful mill cards later on. We still want to try to slow that down. We do have the Storm's Wrath and kind of clean these up as well, but without it in hand, better just kind of slow down their game plan a little bit. We have double blue in hand, not anything for double black, so we'll play this as a blue source. Pass. So we do have counter magic, or we can Shark Typhoon for 1 and try to pick one of these off maybe. Folio of Fancies. I don't think I care about that. Sure. Yeah, we'll cycle this for 1, block, kill something, draw another card. Alright, never really seen Folio Fancies used to great effect, so I'm not really too concerned about this. I'd like that pathway back to play as a black source, but that's alright. I'm going to play you. I think we go and fire this off in case they're running counter magic, just to kind of slow down their mill again. And next turn we have Ashiok. And we also have the Anticognition or Shark Typhoon cycle for 1. So we're missing black manas. We have double red here if we find our Chandra. Let's actually just play this out as a 3-1, start putting some pressure on them. Storm's Wrath is interesting. Go and play this out in case we do find a Chandra swing. I doubt they're running sweepers, so we'll go and plus here. Obviously they could have some removal for Ashiok, but we have a couple creatures here as well. Oh, a Maddening Cacophony. Well, we don't have a counter for that anyway, so we're at 20 cards already. Yeah, they got us pretty good. We don't have great answers here for what they're doing, other than like Neutralize or something like that, but of course we don't have anything in hand. I think we just let that resolve and then E2 Extinction it. Let's see what our next card is. Like a counter magic would be nice. For another Cacophony or something. We'll graveyard that. We don't need that. Not sure what Mind Carver is supposed to do here. We don't know who's Ashiok just yet, so we'll plus. We have another one, so maybe we could have.
All your fears are given.
Not sure we get too much relevance from their deck. We are pushing their life total though. We can cycle. Down to 10 cards. I will cycle for 3, I guess. 3 mana open, 4 cards in hand. That's it. Okay, they got us down to 8 cards in our library. Alright, it's kind of a weird mill deck. Sir Conrad. They're running creatures, but they're also trying to mill. Might try and self-mills. Mana Cacophony only targets the opponent, so you can't be doing like some self-mill thing. Eye Collector self-mills as well. Subtle Strike doesn't really make any sense, neither does Sir Conrad, unless you're trying to do like some kind of a combo. So they do have enough creatures, we have to be mindful of that. Folio of Fancies is an artifact. I don't think we should be worried about that too much. I think if anything, we'd probably just want a couple more counter spells here. Probably have enough removal for what they're doing that I don't think we need the Storm's Wrath. We'll just bring in the negates. Not sure we need anything else, so we'll just roll with it like that and see how this game 2 goes. Always afford to be a little bit more conservative with your sideboard plan if you win game 1. Alright, Temple of Deceit into a red pathway here seems pretty reasonable. Depending on where draws, we might play this as a land as well. Again, they got the turn 1 Eye Collector, so whatever we leave on top is getting milled away. Maybe we should have left on top and hope that they milled it away and then we find a land underneath it, because that's kind of more what we're looking for. Alright, well they got the bunch of mill. That was a Spikefield. That would have been a red mana source. Alright, well we took out a Storm's Wrath, but their creatures are pretty small, so not super worried about it. Play you out as a red source. I'll go and hold up here. Probably pick off this Eye Collector just again to slow down their mill plan. Ooh, Devourer of Memory. That's pretty good. Yeah, I guess we counter that. Take another hit from this Eye Collector. Plus the Apprentice down to 17. Man, all these mill and rogue decks and everything make these temples like so feel so bad. Yeah, I guess we'll leave that there. It's like you can't keep anything on top of your library with these temples, and you have to play temples if you're multicolored because we lost all of our good lands. We'll slow that down, so we'll pick that off and hope they don't get like a Teferi's Tutelage or something else under our negates here. But yeah, we'll be in a good spot next turn with negates and 4 mana's open. There we go. With 4 lands, probably just play that out. So we got double blue, double black, and double red, so pretty much anything we get here is fine. Wow. You got me, opponent. Namana Sky Dancer. Probably sees play in limited, but not something I've seen just yet here in standard. I will negate that. Any of their big mill spells we have to counter. We'll just keep holding up. 3 damage is a lot, but we can take a couple more hits. We'll have to kill the Sky Dancer at some point, though. Alright, gets a creature off the board as well. I didn't need to stop this Sky Dancer, just slow down. We are down to 10. Fire that off. So leave it on top, see what they got. Okay, good to keep it. Perfect. Alright, so we are without counter magics. We do have some card draw though. Take another hit or two from this Prentice before we have to worry about it. Opponent says go. Alright, we'll fire this off. See what we can find. Alright, probably don't need a million temples. Guess we can ditch the Rakdos, probably doesn't matter too much. Alright, Temple. We do want this Ashiok. So let's hope we can keep that on top. They haven't been able to mill us for a couple turns, so we'll see. We might get to actually draw this. Nope. Silundi Vision only gets artifacts, instants and sorceries, so. A bit of a land here. Sure they have a kill spell. Our life total is getting low, so let's go ahead and fire this off. Don't do something bad. Eventually, they're just gonna kill us with a 1/2. That's pretty bad. All right, we're going and fire this off. A little bit shields down here, but that's fine. Okay. Wow, people leave some weird cards in against the Grixis control. You got me. Alright, so we mill 4. We're still at 30 cards, so we're not in a terrible spot. Let's get Ashiok down while they're tapped out. Send a message. So next turn we'll have some counter magic protection, which will be nice. We can also bounce this enchantment with Ashiok's minus, but they'll just keep upticking. Wow, these mill enchantment cards versus our control deck is kind of interesting. We'll leave it on top, let them mill it. I'm guessing they'll have some more ways to mill us. We do have Neutralize though, so we'll see what they do. Sir Conrad. Well, we have a way to kill it, so we'll let that resolve. I guess we'll use the Mauling. So we're more mana efficient later on. Yeah, we'll just keep plussing. Next turn we can minus on Ashiok. We have three puny little creatures, but could be decent. Again, we have a kill spell for it, so let it resolve. We're just saving Neutralize for like a maddening cacophony sort of play. Obviously, we have lots of cards in our graveyard, so the Relic Golem can attack. Do we care about that? No, we'll let him have it. Let's dig for another counter magic. Take a Neutralize. Pathway. I don't really care too much about their creatures. They're not very super relevant. We'll bounce that back to their hand, make them exile something. This nice thing is they're milling a lot, so it's not going to be able to. Now we're feeding their escape on the Sweet Oblivion, so they're down to 13. So we're kind of putting some pressure on them. Still got 20 or so cards. With 2 Neutralize, we'll go and fire one off. I imagine our opponent's going to be conceding here. Wow, they have 2 of them. Alright, we'll send a message. We're the one that's kind of milling them. All these tokens triggering for quite a few cards. And we can minus on this enchantment anytime. Actually, no, let's let that resolve. Alright, now we can see what's on top of our library. Graveyard that. Almost worth keeping it just because we're up against this mill list. Yeah, we'll keep plussing. We might actually mill them. Oh no, wait, we have 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, we have lethal right now. Alright, we just got there with Ashiok tokens. Sweet. So, pretty interesting deck from our opponent. Not sure what Conrad was there for. I guess just the activated ability to mill. Yeah, kind of interesting take on mill. Pretty cool. Been working on a Dimir mill list myself, so you can see that one here at some point soon, probably. But yeah, a couple of decent matches with Grixis control. Obviously not the power level that it used to be. But Ashiok is still a super powerful card, and kind of playing around with these lands that are also double as removal is pretty sweet, and I think it could be something that control decks absolutely want to be including in their lists as well. So this is just kind of my initial build, and it's done okay for me. Like I said, I don't think it's like necessarily competitive, but it is pretty. It's a way to play Grixis control if you kind of miss that that archetype. So. Definitely an interesting starting point. Spikefield Hazard seems like it's just kind of a must in the meta. And it's only an uncommon too, so you should definitely try to craft these in your collection. Anticognition at common is just super sweet. You should have your Omen of the Seas by now. Heartless Act, again, I think is the preferred removal spell. Brazen Borrower, of course, is a must in your collection. Neutralize is pretty sweet. Silundi Vision is an uncommon. It's not most amazing. Not super impressed by this card yet, but I still think it's worth the 2 copies, but maybe this could be something else. Just the fact that this is a land or card draw in the late game is pretty interesting. Of course, Murderous Rider, Reign of Revelation, obviously we're a little bit light on card draw, but digging 3 cards deep, and then like I said, we're not super mana hungry like maybe some other control decks can be. So we don't necessarily mind discarding like a land to this, or whatever spell isn't necessarily relevant. Extinction is pretty sweet. I think exile removal is also pretty important in the meta. Seems like there's lots of ways to kind of recur things, not just Urros, but just kind of other things. And then the Storm's Wrath, since we're more of a counter type of a deck, trying to play instant speed and having a way to kind of clean up the board is nice. And the fact that it's Planeswalkers, I think, is what makes this main deckable. And then Chandra's pretty sweet here, but obviously Ashiok and Shark Typhoon are kind of the stars of the show, mostly Ashiok, but then Shark Typhoon either by cycling it or by just hardcasting it and then getting the value by cast triggers can be pretty sweet as well. And that's kind of interesting, playing like a control deck that goes up to 5-6 mana and you just run 20 lands is pretty interesting. So definitely enjoying what Zendikar Rising has brought to the table in terms of the lands. So it seems very interesting to kind of play around and experiment with. And so this is kind of the first kind of iteration of a Grixis control deck, if you guys are interested in that, to kind of play around with. Obviously, sideboard, the meta is still kind of shaking itself out in some ways, so I'm not entirely sure this is exactly where you want to be. But I think in the deck tech, I explained kind of the reasons why we were running some of these cards and how they kind of interact with the current meta. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, guys, and until next time, make sure you jank with purpose.